The morning sky over Geneva was a canvas of pristine blue when the first ships appeared. Dr. Elena Vasquez was reviewing seismic data from the Large Hadron Collider when her colleague burst through the laboratory door, his face pale with terror. "Elena, you need to see this," Dr. Markuschin gasped, pointing toward the window. "Look up." She followed his trembling finger and felt her breath catch. Massive, obsidian structures hung motionless in the atmosphere, their surfaces reflecting the morning sun like polished mirrors. They were geometric yet organic, resembling crystalline flowers that had bloomed in the heavens. Each ship was easily the size of a city district, and there were dozens of them visible from their vantage point alone. "How long have they been there?" Elena whispered, her scientific mind already racing through possibilities. "About 10 minutes. They just appeared. No approach trajectory, no warning. The military's going crazy trying to figure out how they got past our detection systems." Elena's hands shook as she reached for her phone. Every news channel was broadcasting the same impossible sight. The alien vessels had materialized simultaneously over every major population center on Earth. London, Tokyo, New York, Moscow, Beijing, Sao Paulo, humanity's greatest cities now cowered beneath the shadow of these enigmatic craft. The ships remained silent for exactly 1 hour. Then, as the world held its breath, they began to speak. The transmission came not through radio waves or conventional communication channels, but directly into the minds of every human being on the planet. The voice was neither male nor female, carrying an otherworldly resonance that seemed to bypass the ears entirely. "People of Earth," the voice began, its tone carrying an unsettling mixture of authority and what might have been compassion. "We are the hegemony. We have traveled across the void between stars to bring you into our collective. Your species has reached a threshold of development that necessitates guidance." Elena clutched her head as the alien words resonated through her consciousness. Around her, colleagues were doing the same, some crying out in fear or confusion. "We do not come as conquerors, but as shepherds. Your world will be integrated into our domain for the betterment of all sentient life. Resistance is futile and will only result in unnecessary suffering. You have 72 hours to prepare for the transition." The voice faded, leaving behind a silence more profound than any Elena had ever experienced. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then chaos erupted. 3 hours after the transmission, the most powerful leaders on Earth gathered in an emergency session. The location was a hardened bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, far from the alien ships that continued their vigil over the world's cities. General Patricia Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stood before a holographic display showing the global situation. Red dots marked the position of each alien vessel, their ominous presence a constant reminder of humanity's predicament. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice cutting through the tension, "we face an unprecedented threat. Our preliminary analysis suggests these ships possess technology far beyond our current capabilities. However, we are not without options." President Sarah Chen leaned forward, her expression grim. "General, what are our military assets telling us? The ships appear to be shielded by some form of energy barrier. Our radar can barely penetrate their hulls, and satellite imagery shows minimal surface detail. What we do know is disturbing. Each vessel is approximately 2 miles in diameter and shows no obvious propulsion system." Dr. James Morrison, the world's leading expert on theoretical physics, cleared his throat. "If I may, General, the way these ships appeared suggests they possess faster-than-light travel capabilities, possibly through dimensional folding or wormhole manipulation. The energy requirements for such technology are staggering." "Which means what, exactly?" asked Prime Minister Williams of the United Kingdom. "It means we're dealing with a civilization that has harnessed energy sources we can barely comprehend. If they wanted to destroy us outright, they likely could have done so already." General Hayes nodded grimly. "Which brings us to their stated intention, integration. We need to assume they plan to occupy Earth, not annihilate it. This gives us certain advantages." "Such as?" President Chen asked. "They need our infrastructure intact. They need our population manageable but not destroyed. This means they have limitations on the force they can apply without damaging their own objectives." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Chancellor Müller of Germany spoke up. "What do you propose, General? We have 69 hours to prepare for the fight of our lives. I'm recommending we activate Project Prometheus immediately." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Project Prometheus was humanity's most classified military program, developed in absolute secrecy over the past decade. Even among this elite group, only a handful knew its true nature. "For those not briefed on Prometheus," General Hayes continued, "it's our contingency plan for asymmetric warfare against the technologically superior enemy. The project has been developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter advanced threats." Dr. Morrison leaned forward. "General, Prometheus was designed for human adversaries with superior technology. We're talking about genuine aliens here. The principles remain the same, Doctor. We use their advantages against them. We make them pay for every mile of ground. And we hope that somewhere in their advanced civilization, they've forgotten what it means to face an enemy with nothing left to lose." President Chen stood, her decision made. "Do it. Activate Prometheus. Send word to every military commander on Earth, we're going to war." As the leaders dispersed to prepare their nations for the coming conflict, none of them noticed the subtle shift in the alien ships' positions. High above the atmosphere, the hegemony had been listening. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, Colonel Jack Reynolds descended into the most classified facility in human history. The Prometheus complex had been carved from living rock, its corridors extending for miles in all directions. Here, humanity's greatest scientific minds had been working on technologies that officially didn't exist. "Colonel Reynolds reporting for briefing," he announced to the biometric scanner. The massive blast door rolled aside with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a world of barely controlled chaos. Scientists and engineers rushed between laboratories, their faces showing the strain of the past few hours. Emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow, and the air hummed with the energy of experimental weapons being brought online ahead of schedule. Dr. Sarah Kim, the project's director, met him at the entrance. Her usually pristine lab coat was stained with coffee and stress sweat. "Jack, thank God you're here. We've got less than 60 hours to turn theoretical weapons into practical reality." "What do we have, Sarah?" Reynolds asked as they walked through the facility. "3 main systems. First, the quantum disruptor array. It generates focused electromagnetic pulses that should theoretically interfere with exotic matter configurations. If the aliens are using quantum field manipulation for their shields, this might penetrate them." They stopped at a laboratory where technicians were assembling what looked like a cross between a radar dish and a particle accelerator. The device hummed with barely contained energy. "How many can we deploy?" Reynolds asked. "We've got prototypes for 12 units. If we strip every research facility on Earth, we might manage 30 by the deadline." They moved deeper into the complex, passing through increasingly secure sections. The second laboratory contained something that made Reynolds whistle in amazement. "The gravitational lance," Dr. Kim explained. "It creates localized gravitational anomalies, essentially artificial black holes that last for microseconds. The tidal forces should be sufficient to damage even heavily armored targets." "And the third system?" Dr. Kim's expression grew troubled. "The Prometheus virus. It's controversial." They entered a chamber that looked more like a medical facility than a weapons lab. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens showing complex biological models. "We've developed a quantum-encoded virus that can allegedly adapt to any biological or synthetic system. It was designed to target enemy computer networks, but theoretical models suggest it might work on alien biology as well." Reynolds studied the readouts with growing unease. "Sarah, this looks like it could affect our own systems too." "It could. The virus is designed to distinguish between self and other, but with alien technology, we honestly don't know what might happen." Before Reynolds could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Dr. Kim rushed to a communications console and activated the emergency channel. This is Prometheus Control, report. Dr. Kim, this is NORAD. We have movement from the alien vessels. They're launching smaller craft. Through the facility's periscope feeds, they watched as the massive alien ships began releasing swarms of smaller vessels. These new craft were sleek and predatory, darting through the atmosphere with impossible agility. How many? Reynolds asked. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. They're heading for population centers worldwide. Reynolds turned to Dr. Kim. How long until the first systems are ready? The quantum disruptors need another 18 hours minimum. The gravitational lance won't be ready for deployment until... We don't have 18 hours, Reynolds interrupted. Get me anything that can shoot back in the next 6 hours, even if it's just a prototype. As Dr. Kim rushed to coordinate the emergency deployment, Reynolds stared at the images of the alien scouts. Humanity's last hope was about to be tested against an enemy that had traveled between the stars. The countdown to invasion had begun. The first attacks came at dawn, coordinated across every time zone with mechanical precision. The alien scouts descended on major cities like silver locusts, their sleek forms weaving between skyscrapers with impossible grace. They made no sound as they moved, their silence somehow more terrifying than any war cry. In New York City, fighter jets scrambled from airfields across the eastern seaboard. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos led the 1st Interceptor Squadron, her F-35 Lightning II screaming through the dawn sky above Manhattan. This is Phoenix Leader to all units, she transmitted. We have visual contact with multiple bogies. They're fast, people. Faster than anything we've seen. The alien scouts moved in perfect formation, their surfaces rippling with patterns of light that seemed to shift and change. They ignored the approaching jets entirely, focusing instead on the city below. Phoenix Leader, this is Control. You are cleared to engage. Santos locked onto the nearest scout and fired. The AIM-120 AMRAAM missile streaked toward its target, its warhead armed with the latest explosive compounds. The weapon struck the alien craft dead center, and passed through it harmlessly. What the hell? Santos muttered, pulling into a steep turn. Control, missile had no effect. The target appears to be some kind of hologram. Around the world, the same scenario played out. Conventional weapons passed through the scouts without causing damage, while the alien craft continued their mysterious survey of human civilization. Then the real invasion began. The massive motherships descended through the atmosphere like falling mountains. As they approached the surface, their hulls began to glow with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. The air itself seemed to thicken around them, and electronics began failing for miles in every direction. In Geneva, Dr. Elena Vasquez was coordinating the evacuation of the research facility when the first mothership settled over the city. The craft was so large it blocked out the sun, casting the entire metropolitan area into an artificial twilight. Elena, we need to go! Marcus Chen shouted over the growing electromagnetic interference. The transport leaves in 10 minutes! But Elena was transfixed by the readings on her instruments. The alien ship was generating energy patterns that shouldn't have been possible, quantum field fluctuations that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Elena! She snapped back to reality and grabbed her emergency kit. As they ran for the evacuation vehicles, the mothership began to descend further. Its lowest point was now less than 1,000 feet above the tallest buildings. Then it began to change. The smooth obsidian surface rippled like liquid metal, revealing openings that had not been there moments before. From these apertures emerged a new type of alien craft, larger than the scouts but smaller than the motherships. These vessels were clearly military in nature, their surfaces bristling with what could only be weapons. This is it, Elena whispered as they reached the transport helicopter. The real invasion is starting. The first energy weapon fired from the alien battleships struck the Swiss military base outside Geneva. The blast was silent but devastating, vaporizing several square blocks in an instant. The light was so intense that it could be seen through closed eyelids. As the helicopter lifted off, Elena saw similar beams lancing down from motherships around the world. The aliens were systematically destroying military installations, communication centers, and government facilities. They were decapitating human resistance with surgical precision. But in the Nevada desert, Colonel Reynolds was about to prove that humanity wasn't finished yet. The first quantum disruptor array came online just as the alien forces began their systematic destruction of Earth's military infrastructure. Colonel Reynolds stood in the Prometheus Control Center, watching satellite feeds of the global battle. "Status report," he called to the technicians working frantically at their stations. "QDA-1 is ready for firing," Dr. Kim announced. "We have a clear target, the mothership over Los Angeles." The display showed the massive alien vessel hovering over the city. Its energy weapons were methodically destroying key infrastructure while smaller craft deployed what appeared to be ground forces. "What's our assessment of the target?" Reynolds asked. "The ship is generating a quantum field that extends approximately 50 miles in all directions. Our projections suggest this field is what's protecting it from conventional weapons." Reynolds studied the tactical display. The Los Angeles mothership was positioned directly over the city center, making it impossible to use nuclear weapons without massive civilian casualties. The aliens had chosen their positions carefully. "Fire when ready," he ordered. The quantum disruptor array, hidden in a mountain facility outside Las Vegas, began to charge. The device drew power from a dedicated fusion reactor, its energy requirements so enormous that lights dimmed across Nevada. Through the facility's sensors, Reynolds watched the beam lance out toward the alien mothership. The energy was invisible to the naked eye but showed up clearly on their instruments, a focused stream of quantum disruption that should theoretically penetrate any known shielding. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien ship's smooth surface began to ripple. The energy patterns along its hull flickered and changed, and for the first time since the invasion began, one of the massive vessels showed signs of distress. "It's working!" Dr. Kim shouted. "The quantum field is destabilizing!" But their celebration was short-lived. The mothership's surface suddenly blazed with new energy patterns, and the quantum disruption beam simply stopped. The alien vessel had adapted to their weapon in less than 30 seconds. "They're learning," Reynolds said grimly. "They're analyzing our weapons in real time and developing countermeasures." Worse, the mothership was now turning its attention to the source of the attack. Energy began building along its hull, focusing in the direction of the Nevada facility. "All personnel to emergency stations," Reynolds ordered. "This is not a drill." The alien response came as a beam of pure energy that struck the mountain above the Prometheus facility. The entire peak was vaporized in seconds, and the shockwave knocked everyone in the control center to the ground. Emergency lighting flickered on as the facility's main power grid failed. Through the smoke and sparks, Reynolds could see that several control stations had been destroyed by falling debris. "Damage report," he called out. "Main systems are offline," a technician reported. "Emergency power is holding, but we've lost contact with QDA-1. Reynolds felt a cold realization settling over him. The aliens weren't just technologically superior, they were tactically brilliant. They had allowed the humans to reveal their most advanced weapons before striking back with overwhelming force. "Sir?" Dr. Kim approached him, her face streaked with dust and blood from a minor cut. "We're getting reports from other Prometheus facilities. They're all under attack. The aliens are systematically destroying our advanced weapons. How many facilities do we have left?" 3, maybe 4. The others are either destroyed or cut off from communication." Reynolds stared at the tactical display, watching as humanity's last hope crumbled under the alien assault. But then he noticed something odd in the data streams. "Sarah, look at this. The alien ships are concentrating their attacks on our quantum weapons but ignoring conventional military responses." Dr. Kim studied the patterns. "You're right. They're not targeting regular Army bases or Air Force installations. It's like they're only concerned with our most advanced technology. Which means they're afraid of something," Reynolds concluded. "We just need to figure out what." The answer came from an unexpected source. A message from the International Space Station, which had somehow remained in communication despite the global chaos. Prometheus Control, this is ISS. We have observational data on the alien vessels. You need to know, they're not solid. Reynolds grabbed the communications console. ISS, please repeat. The ships aren't solid matter. There's some kind of energy construct held together by quantum field manipulation. The smaller vessels appear to be drones controlled by the motherships. We think the actual aliens might not even be on Earth. Reynolds felt a spark of hope. If the ships were energy constructs, then maybe the right kind of disruption could affect them. But they needed to hit the aliens with something they couldn't adapt to, something so fundamentally different from their quantum weapons that it would take time to develop countermeasures. Sarah, he said slowly, what about the gravitational lance? Have the aliens seen gravity-based weapons yet? Dr. Kim's eyes widened. No. And if their ships are energy constructs, gravitational distortion might be the one thing they can't simply adapt to. Reynolds smiled grimly. Then let's give them something they haven't seen before. The gravitational lance was humanity's most ambitious weapon, a device that could temporarily warp space-time itself. Hidden in a facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, it had been designed to create localized gravitational anomalies, artificial black holes that would tear apart any target caught in their field. Dr. Kim led a skeleton crew through the damaged facility, trying to bring the weapon online ahead of schedule. The alien attack on the Nevada complex had shown them that time was running out. How long until we can fire? Reynolds asked as he joined them in the control room. The gravitational field generators need another 4 hours to reach full synchronization, Dr. Kim replied. But we might be able to fire at reduced power in 2 hours. We don't have 2 hours, Reynolds said, pointing to the tactical display. The aliens are moving ground forces into position around every major city. Whatever they're planning, it's about to happen. Through satellite feeds, they could see the alien forces more clearly now. The beings themselves were tall and ethereal, their forms seeming to shift between solid matter and pure energy. They moved with purpose, establishing perimeters around key population centers. They're hurting us, Reynolds realized. Concentrating the population for easier control. An incoming message interrupted his thoughts. The transmission was from General Hayes, broadcasting from a mobile command center. All Prometheus facilities, this is Hayes. We have intelligence on the alien objectives. They're not trying to exterminate humanity, they're preparing for mass teleportation. Reynolds felt his blood run cold. Teleportation to where? Unknown. But our xenobiological team believes the aliens are planning to relocate large portions of Earth's population to another world. Possibly for slave labor, possibly for study. Either way, we can't let it happen. The implications were staggering. If the aliens could teleport millions of humans to another planet, Earth would be left nearly empty, ready for alien colonization. General, we're preparing to fire the gravitational lance, Reynolds reported. But we need a target that will cause maximum disruption to their operations. Negative, Colonel. We've identified a better target. The alien motherships are connected by some kind of quantum communication network. If we can disrupt the primary node, we might be able to sever their command structure. The tactical display updated to show a new target, a massive alien structure that had emerged from the mothership over Geneva. Unlike the others, this vessel was clearly different, its surface covered in complex geometric patterns that pulsed with energy. That's their command ship, General Hayes continued. Take it out, and we might buy ourselves enough time to mount a real resistance. Dr. Kim studied the energy readings from the alien command vessel. The gravitational distortion should work, but we'll only get one shot. If they adapt to gravity-based weapons like they did to the quantum disruptors, then we make sure the first shot counts, Reynolds said firmly. The gravitational lance began its charging sequence. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, massive superconducting coils began to spin, generating the electromagnetic fields necessary to warp space-time. The power draw was enormous. Every available reactor in North America was diverted to feed the weapon. As the weapon charged, Reynolds watched the global situation deteriorate. The alien ground forces were moving faster now, their energy weapons cutting through human resistance with ease. Cities were falling one by one, their populations being herded into massive collection points. "Charging complete," Dr. Kim announced. "We have a clear firing solution on the command vessel." Reynolds took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few seconds. "Fire!" The gravitational lance activated with a sound like reality tearing apart. Space-time twisted around the weapon's focal point, creating a gravitational anomaly that should have been impossible. The distortion raced toward the alien command ship at the speed of light. When it struck, the effect was immediate and devastating. The command vessel's energy matrix began to collapse in on itself, its quantum fields unable to resist the fundamental force of gravity. The ship's surface rippled and twisted as it was caught in the artificial gravitational well. For a moment, it seemed like the weapon would succeed. Then the impossible happened. The command ship began to emit a new type of energy, something that seemed to push back against gravity itself. The gravitational anomaly collapsed, its effects neutralized by alien technology that humanity couldn't even comprehend. "They're adapting," Dr. Kim whispered. "They're developing countermeasures to gravity manipulation." But Reynolds was watching something else on the display. The brief disruption had caused a cascade failure in the alien communication network. Around the world, the smaller alien vessels were becoming disoriented, their perfect coordination breaking down. "We hurt them," he said with growing excitement. "We disrupted their command structure." General Hayes's voice crackled over the communications system. "All units, this is Hayes. The alien coordination is failing. This is our chance. Launch Operation Exodus." Reynolds felt a surge of hope. Operation Exodus was humanity's last desperate gambit, a plan to evacuate Earth's population to hidden underground facilities while striking back at the alien forces with everything they had left. The real war for Earth was about to begin. 6 months after the initial invasion. High above Earth's scarred surface, in the crystalline command chamber of the primary mothership, Keeper Zeth stood before the collective council. The chamber was a marvel of Zephyrian engineering, its walls displaying real-time data from every corner of the invaded world. The information painted a picture that troubled him deeply. "The integration process has stalled," reported Subkeeper Vex, her ethereal form flickering with patterns of concern. "Human resistance continues to grow despite our technological superiority." Zeth studied the tactical displays showing the global situation. Red zones marked areas of active human resistance, yellow indicated unstable control, and green represented successful integration. The map was far too red for his liking. "In our previous integrations," he said slowly, "resistance movements typically collapsed within 3 months. The humans have maintained organized opposition for twice that duration." "They adapt," observed Military Commander Crest, his form radiating frustration. "Every time we develop new countermeasures, they find ways around them. It's unprecedented." Zeth had lived through 47 successful integrations across the galaxy. Each time, the pattern was the same: initial resistance, gradual breakdown of organized opposition, and eventual acceptance of hegemony guidance. Species that fought too hard were simply eliminated, their worlds preserved for future colonization. But humanity was different. "Show me the London Underground analysis," Zeth commanded. The holographic display shifted to show the labyrinthine tunnel system beneath the British capital. The humans had turned the entire network into a fortress, with hidden weapons caches, communication nodes, and supply depots. Similar networks existed under every major city on Earth. "They've weaponized their own infrastructure," Bex observed. "Their transportation tunnels, storm drains, even their sewage systems have become military assets." "More than that," Crest added grimly. "They're using our own technology against us. The captured equipment from our forces is being reverse-engineered and modified. They're creating hybrid weapons that our systems can't predict." Zeth felt a stirring of something he hadn't experienced in millennia: uncertainty. The hegemony had encountered countless species, from the warrior priests of Andromeda Prime to the hive minds of the Magellanic Clouds. All had eventually yielded to superior technology, and coordinated strategy. Perhaps we need to reconsider our approach, he suggested carefully. The integration protocols were designed for species that fight conventionally. These humans, they seem to thrive on chaos. The suggestion sent ripples of shock through the council. The integration protocols had been refined over thousands of years, tested on hundreds of worlds. They were considered infallible. Keeper Zeth, Beck said with barely concealed alarm. Surely you're not suggesting we abandon the protocols? I'm suggesting we acknowledge that this species requires special consideration. Look at their history. The display shifted to show human conflicts throughout history. They've been fighting each other for millennia, developing increasingly sophisticated methods of warfare. They've survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and their own weapons of mass destruction. They're not just adapted to conflict, they're evolved for it. Commander Crest's form brightened with interest. You're saying they're natural warriors? I'm saying they're natural survivors, Seth corrected. And that makes them uniquely dangerous to our standard approach. The council fell silent as they absorbed this analysis. Finally, Vex spoke up. What do you propose? We need to understand them better. Not just their technology or their military capabilities, but their psychology. What drives them to fight when logic suggests surrender? What makes them believe they can win against impossible odds? Seth activated a new display showing captured human communications. Listen to this transmission intercepted from their resistance networks. A human voice filled the chamber, speaking in what the translation systems identified as English. This is London Underground to all stations. We've lost contact with Sector 7, but Sectors 2 and 5 are holding. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every species that might face the hegemony in the future. If we can prove that resistance is possible, others will follow. The transmission ended, leaving the council in contemplative silence. Finally, Zeth spoke. They're not just fighting for survival. They're fighting for principle. They believe their resistance has meaning beyond their own world. Dangerous thinking, Bex observed. Indeed. But it also suggests a potential solution. If we can understand what drives them, we might be able to find a way to coexist rather than simply integrate. The word coexist sent another shock through the council. It was a concept that hadn't been discussed in the hegemony for over 1,000 years. Keeper Zeth, Bex said carefully. Coexistence implies equality. The protocols exist to ensure stability and order. If we allow one species to maintain independence, others might demand the same. Zeth finished. Yes, I understand the implications. But consider the alternative. If we cannot integrate humanity through conventional means, and if elimination would damage the planet's ecosystem, what options remain? The question hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time in millennia, the hegemony faced a problem that couldn't be solved through superior technology or overwhelming force. I want a full psychological analysis of human behavior patterns, Seth ordered. And I want it done by humans themselves. Select candidates from our prisoners, scientists, leaders, anyone who can help us understand their species. You're suggesting we collaborate with the enemy? Crest asked. I'm suggesting we learn from them, Seth replied. If we're going to find a solution to this conflict, we need to understand what we're truly fighting against. As the council dispersed to carry out their orders, Seth remained in the command chamber, studying the displays showing humanity's continued resistance. Somewhere in those underground tunnels, human minds were devising new ways to fight back, new strategies to survive against impossible odds. For the first time in his long existence, Seth found himself respecting his enemy. And that respect would change everything. 6 months after the initial invasion, Earth had become a world of shadows and underground tunnels. The alien forces had established control over the surface, but humanity had proven surprisingly adaptable to subterranean warfare. Elena Vasquez crouched in a tunnel system beneath what had once been Geneva, her scientific equipment now modified for guerrilla warfare. The underground resistance had grown from scattered survivors into a global network of fighters who knew every cave, subway tunnel, and storm drain on the planet. Movement above, whispered Marcus Chin from his position at the tunnel entrance. 3 alien patrols, moving in formation. Elena studied the readings on her modified sensors. The alien forces were methodical in their search patterns, but they had one crucial weakness. They relied heavily on their advanced technology. In the confined spaces of the underground, where energy weapons could cause tunnel collapses and their quantum fields were disrupted by tons of rock, they were vulnerable. Remember, she said to the small team of resistance fighters, we're not trying to win this engagement. We're gathering intelligence. The mission was part of a larger plan developed by the scattered remains of the world's military leadership. They needed to understand how the alien technology worked, and the only way to do that was to capture functioning equipment. The resistance had learned to fight dirty. They used EMP devices to disrupt alien sensors, directed water through the tunnels to interfere with energy weapons, and employed tactics that the aliens' advanced AI seemed unable to predict. Target acquired, Elena said, watching as one of the alien patrols moved over a section of tunnel where they had placed shaped charges. This is for everyone they've taken. The explosion was contained but devastating. The street above collapsed, trapping 2 alien soldiers in a pocket of debris. Their energy weapons were useless in the confined space, and their quantum armor couldn't protect them from several tons of concrete and steel. Move in, Elena ordered. We have maybe 5 minutes before reinforcements arrive. The resistance fighters swarmed the trapped aliens, using modified electromagnetic nets to contain them. Elena was surprised to see that up close, the invaders looked almost human. Tall, graceful beings with pale skin and large eyes that seemed to hold an ancient sadness. They're not what I expected, Marcus said as they loaded the captured aliens onto stretchers. None of this is what we expected, Elena replied. But we're adapting. The intelligence gathered from captured alien technology had revealed disturbing truths about the invasion. The aliens, who called themselves the hegemony, were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were refugees. Their original homeworld had been destroyed by cosmic catastrophe, and they had been wandering the galaxy for millennia, integrating other species into their collective to ensure their survival. Earth was just the latest in a long series of worlds they had claimed. But humanity was proving to be different from their previous conquests. Other species had either submitted quickly or been overwhelmed by the aliens' superior technology. Humans, however, had gone underground, literally and figuratively. Elena, we need to move, Marcus said urgently. Seismic sensors are picking up heavy movement above. They began their retreat through the tunnel system, carrying their valuable prisoners. The intelligence they had gathered would be transmitted to resistance cells around the world, adding to humanity's growing understanding of their enemy. As they moved through the underground passages, Elena thought about the messages they had been receiving from other resistance cells. Colonel Reynolds was still alive, operating out of a hidden facility in the Colorado mountains. General Hayes had established a mobile command center that moved constantly to avoid detection. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians had all united in the common cause of survival. The aliens had expected to face a conventional military force that would crumble under their superior technology. Instead, they had found themselves fighting a species that refused to surrender, that adapted to every new threat, and that seemed to thrive in the very conditions that would defeat other races. Elena, Marcus said as they reached the safety of the deeper tunnels, do you think we can actually win this? She looked at the captured alien soldiers, their advanced armor now useless, their quantum weapons neutralized by simple electromagnetic fields. Maybe not win in the traditional sense, she said, but we're going to make them pay for every inch of our world. Above them, the alien forces continued their methodical search for the human resistance. They had conquered dozens of worlds, absorbed countless species into their collective, and traveled across the galaxy in their endless quest for survival. But they had never faced anything like humanity. 7 months after the invasion, Dr. Sarah Chin had never expected to become a prisoner of war, much less a psychological consultant to her captors. The alien facility where she was held was a marvel of technology, walls that shifted between transparent and opaque at will, furniture that materialized from thin air, an air that somehow felt more pure than anything she had breathed on Earth. Dr. Chen. The alien voice spoke directly into her mind. We require your assistance in understanding your species. She looked up from her workstation to see Keeper Zeth approaching. The alien leader moved with fluid grace, his form shifting between solid matter and pure energy. Despite everything that had happened, Chen found herself fascinated by the alien's biology. You mean you want to understand how to defeat us more efficiently? She replied. No, Zeth said, and Chen detected something like sadness in his mental voice. We want to understand why you fight when fighting means destruction. Why you choose death over integration. Chen set down her research tools. Over the past weeks, she had been analyzing human psychological profiles for the aliens, ostensibly to help them develop better integration protocols. But she suspected Zeth had other motivations. Because integration isn't life, she said simply. It's absorption. You're not offering us a place in your society, you're offering to make us disappear into it. But the benefits are enormous, Zeth protested. Disease, poverty, conflict, all eliminated. Your species would have access to technology beyond your wildest dreams. At the cost of being human, Chen replied. Tell me, Keeper Zeth, what were the Zephyrians like before you became the hegemony? The alien's form flickered with what Chen had learned to recognize as surprise. You know of our origins? I've been studying your historical records. You were artists, philosophers, scientists. Your culture valued individual expression and creativity. What happened to that? Zeth was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his mental voice carried an ancient sadness. Survival. We absorbed other species to gain their knowledge, their strengths. But in doing so, we lost ourselves. We became something efficient, but no longer beautiful. And now you want to do the same to us, Chen observed. We want to save you from the mistakes we made, Zeth said. But perhaps we are only repeating them. Chen stood and walked to the chamber's viewing port, which showed the Earth below. Even from orbit, she could see the scars of the invasion, cities in ruins, forests burning, oceans choked with debris. But she could also see signs of resistance, hidden settlements, underground networks, and the faint energy signatures of human weapons. Down there, she said, pointing to the planet, people are dying to preserve something you've forgotten. The right to be different. The right to fail. The right to grow in their own way, at their own pace. Even if that growth leads to destruction? Zeth asked. Even then, Chen replied. Because the alternative isn't growth at all. It's stagnation dressed up as perfection. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. The chamber's walls suddenly became transparent, showing the space around the mothership. Energy beams were lancing up from the planet's surface, striking the alien vessel's shields. Another attack, Zeth said with resignation. The Resistance has developed new weapons. Chen watched the battle with professional interest. The human weapons were crude compared to alien technology, but they were used with remarkable creativity. The Resistance wasn't trying to destroy the mothership. They were trying to disrupt its communications and force it to relocate. You're learning, she said admiringly. Learning what? Zeth asked. That winning isn't about having the best weapons. It's about adapting faster than your enemy. You have superior technology, but we have superior adaptability. Every time you counter one of our strategies, we develop 3 new ones. As if to prove her point, the human attack suddenly shifted tactics. Instead of focusing on the mothership's shields, the energy beams began targeting the smaller escort vessels. The aliens' perfect coordination became a liability, as the destruction of one ship sent cascade failures through the entire formation. Fascinating, Zeth murmured. They're using our own network integration against us. Welcome to asymmetric warfare, Chen said. You fight like you're playing chess, calculating moves and countermoves. We fight like we're playing jazz, improvising, adapting, creating new patterns in real time. The battle ended with the alien formation retreating to a higher orbit. The human attack had been brief but effective, causing minimal damage while maximum disruption. It was a perfect example of the new kind of warfare that had emerged from the underground. Dr. Chen, Seth said slowly. What would it take for your species to coexist with ours? Not integration, but genuine cooperation? Chin considered the question carefully. Respect, she said finally. Respect for our differences, our right to self-determination, our messy, chaotic way of solving problems. Can the hegemony offer that? I don't know, Seth admitted. But I'm beginning to believe we need to learn how. Below them, the Earth continued its silent rotation, its surface marked by the scars of war but also by the stubborn signs of human resistance. In the underground tunnels and hidden bases, millions of people continued their fight for something the aliens had forgotten they once possessed: the right to be themselves. The war was far from over, but for the first time, both sides were beginning to understand that victory might require more than weapons. It might require wisdom.